Hello and welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. I'm Bigidly42. He is Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL. And we're talking about tonight's slate, which unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depending on how you feel about it, doesn't include Coors Field games. So you can't just load up on those bats with your favorite cheap pitcher, which there is one that you and I like quite a bit tonight. So with that being said, obviously I have to be creative with tonight's slate. Top pitching options, price-wise, it's Madison Bumgarner, $11,400. Freddie Freeman, once again on the DL. Bumgarner, he's been okay recently. Had that really bad start to the last game against Texas. Tried to fight everybody right after that, and then was good for the next 5 innings. But at 11-4 tonight, I don't mind him as a play because that's bad offense against left-handed pitching, especially without Freddie Freeman. But I'm not sure that I'll be necessarily paying his price tag. I think Matt Harvey against Miami probably a preferred play for me because he has been, he maybe doesn't have quite the upside of Bumgarner, but he's been fairly consistent, especially with his innings pitched, seven plus in 4 straight.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. They're similarly priced, $500. I don't know how far that's going to go. Obviously, if you can reach up to another guy you want, I'd rather go with Harvey because I think they're, along the same, tier of pitching today. But I don't think you necessarily have to have either guy. I think this is more of a stack up, get your hitters you want, see what you have left for pitching, and maybe rearrange a couple things, go back and, grab the pitcher that you like in a certain tier, certain salary level you're looking at. And if that happens to be the middle range, there are a couple guys worth considering. And the first one is Luis Severino of the Yankees. I know you and I both really like him tonight. He's a prospect for the Yankees, making his MLB debut. And he's just 21-year-old right-hander, has a ton of talent, has been tearing it up in the minor leagues. 1.91 ERA in AAA. That's 11 starts. So been tearing it up, gets a Boston team who has been doing the exact opposite. Not a very good hitting team as of late. You're somewhat concerned about him pitching in Yankee Stadium. If they kind of get to him early, how will he react, especially in a hitter-friendly park? But I think he's good to go in this slate in the 6.7 price tag. That's a calculated risk if you want to consider it a risk at all. I think I really like him. I might pencil him in and then just work around that because there's definitely some higher price bats that you want exposure to.
Yeah, I mean, Severino is one of the better prospects in all of baseball. I mean, in that price, we were talking earlier about how Syndergaard was mid-8Ks when he first came up, but Severino is $6,700. I mean, aside from anything else, I mean, it is a patient Boston team, and they do have some guys that obviously you're worried about, and it is Yankee Stadium, but I mean, you get a hype prospect in Yankee Stadium, there's going to be some pressure, but there's not a lot of risk at $6,700 for him tonight. So I'm really not scared. I'm with you there. The guy's been dominant in the minors this year, so I'm all about it. Anybody else that Taylor Jungmann, we should mention here, yep. $7,900. And then as far as cheap guys, there's really nobody that stands out. There was one guy that we had talked about, but I will say this: if you're stacking a bunch of people, you need the extra money. David Holmberg against the Cardinals, not a guy I feel good about, but
you said it. You're a homer.
I had to say it. He's not a good pitcher, but the Cardinals are not good against lefties. He's $5,300, so he's going to be low owned. If he gives you 5 decent innings at $5,300, you can get any bat you want with him. So I don't mind going that way.
Right. But, yeah. Circling back around to Taylor Jungmann, he's been very good lately. The strikeouts are there, 7+ strikeouts in 3 of the past 4, including a complete game, 9 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts in the win at the Dodgers, who are one of the top teams against right-handed pitchers. So definitely don't mind him, especially after seeing what Jimmy Nelson did to this San Diego lineup. Had a pretty nice performance. I think Jungmann can be in that range tonight, so I like him at 7.9.
Yeah, I definitely am with you there. I'll throw out one more guy who's been fairly consistent recently is Ian Kennedy at $7,800. We know Milwaukee missing a bunch of bats now, traded away most of their lineup. So I don't mind him tonight, but I still prefer Severino and Jungmann, though.
Yep.
All right, catcher options. I love Brian McCann up top there at $3,500. I know you like him as well. I'll throw out another guy I love for tournaments, Wellington Castillo, $3,400. Gio Gonzalez is a fine pitcher, but Castillo hits lefties well, and Gonzalez hasn't been great against righties this year. Almost a 330 WOBA allowed. So for me, Castillo certainly not a cash game play at that price, but definitely a guy that I'll be paying up for in tournaments. I think McCann's probably the guy I'm playing in cash tonight.
Yeah, as you mentioned when we started the podcast, there is no Coors game today, but the Yankees, they might as well be playing in Coors Field because they have a 5-run team total today, which is Coors Field-like for the most part. So definitely don't be afraid to target the Yankees. If you're making a stack, I think they're usable in cash games because there's plenty of pieces you feel confident with. And Brian McCann is one of them. He's going to be popular. He is the top catcher regardless of price, in my opinion. And the fact that he's $1,300 cheaper than Buster Posey is just icing on the cake. So get him in if you can squeeze him. Otherwise, I think Evan Gattis is a tournament spinoff from him. Similar price at $3.3K. Nick Martinez has been worse against right-handed hitters than lefties, and the ball's flying in Texas right now in that heat. So you have to like him and like the Astros tonight. And then if you're going cheap, if you need a punt play, stacking everywhere else, or you're paying up for pitcher, I think Salvador Perez is one of the better cheap plays at catcher. He is $2.2K minimum salary, righty-lefty matchup against Boyd of Detroit, their new acquisition, who previously was pitching for Toronto. And as we saw in those 2 starts with Toronto, he has just been getting crushed with the deep ball. So Sal Perez not hitting lefties as well this year or the past couple years, but I mean, undeniably still has power, still has ability to give you some upside for a minimum price point.
Yeah, absolutely with you there. If you need him in salary, but like we said, I mean, if you're going with one of these middle range guys, you might not need to pay down anywhere.
Right.
First base options, another place where you like to pay up. Paul Goldschmidt's down to $400 or $400. I wish it was $4,000. Another guy.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, if he was $400, he'd probably be 100% owned. Either way.
Well, the thing is, people probably won't even see him down there because they don't scroll down that far.
Yeah, that's true.
They won't expect. So I mean, he'd get overlooked. He'd only be like 40% on, maybe.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's going to be at least 40% owned on my rosters tonight at 4K. It's not that I'm going out of my way to pick on Gio Gonzalez with everyone. I just like the spot for these 2 guys in particular. And I mean, Goldschmidt, one of the best hitters in all of baseball at any position, only $4,000. I like that spot for him. But, I mean, once again, talking about the Yankees and that huge team total, Mark Teixeira is probably going to be your top play at $4,300.
Yeah, I like him, especially as a part of a Yankee stack. I think everyone likes him tonight. Against the knuckleballer Stephen Wright, who has just been... I mean, not only is he a knuckleballer and, pitches get left up when you're a knuckleballer and stuff like that, but he's a bad knuckleballer. I mean, he's the worst version of R.A. Dickey, and he just... A fly ball knuckleballer just doesn't bode well in Yankee Stadium, and that's why Vegas loves the Yanks tonight. So, but yeah, him, Paul Goldschmidt, like them both at the 4K. But otherwise, I think your most comfortable cash game option is Adrian Gonzalez. He's only 3.3K. I know he was a popular pick last night, and he was just, okay, not horrible, not great. But he has another decent matchup tonight at Philly, so I think he's going to be popular and one you can feel confident just plugging him in at 3.3K at first base and just moving on and diversifying elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think he's going to be the chalk play at first base once again. Second base options, there's quite a few, of course. I'll save the second one for you. I know you love, but the guy that I'll probably be playing in cash, and I think you agree, Neil Walker, $3,000. As we know, much better from the left side of the plate. You know how I feel about Dan Herron, not a very good pitcher. Fortunately for him, he gets a decent pitcher's park tonight, but I like that matchup. And then I know there's one more guy that you like that's more expensive in particular.
Wait, are we talking about Brian Dozier?
Yes, we are.
What makes you think that I like Brian Dozier?
Your hat, maybe just a little bit.
Oh, okay.
You forgot.
I like him tonight. Hutchison, there's no N in there, as I just discovered, I should say. But Hutch is not very good against right-handed hitters this season. His WOBA has gone up, 387 against righties this year, and I think this is one of the games where Minnesota could finally break out in this series. Granted, Hutch has been better at home this year, but I don't really know where that's coming from because Toronto is such a hitter-friendly park. I don't know how sustainable that is. So I think Dozier is a fine play, but I'm also with you. I like Neil Walker a lot at 3K against Dan Herron, who has struggled per his career against lefties, has given up the deep ball against lefties. In Pittsburgh, not a great hitter-friendly park, but it's a little better on lefty power than righty power, so take that for what it's worth. Otherwise, another guy in the same range is Cesar Hernandez. He's just consistent. He gets a righty-lefty matchup against Anderson, who is not really one to shy away from. Hernandez, he has stolen base ability. He's gotten multiple hits in 4 of the last 5 games. He's just consistent. You can plug him in there, feel good about it. As a nice cash game play to give you 3 or 4 fantasy points, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, he seems like the guy that's priced like a guy who hasn't been as consistent as he is because he's not a household name. You figure, if that's a guy like Neil Walker, you're going to see him in mid 3Ks at least. So
Yep.
I definitely like that call. Third base, Josh Donaldson, if you can afford him, 5,200. I love him. But also got to love the Yankees and Alex Rodriguez at $4,300. Still having a huge season. Actually hitting righties very, very well this season. So you got to like him as probably your top overall play. And then a couple other guys below that that you like. Chase Headley, of course, another Yankees guy. And then you mentioned this guy. He hasn't been great recently, but we know he has upside, especially against lefties. Chris Bryant is only $3,100.
Yeah, I've been liking Chris Bryant lately. I mean, you have to really love the price point. That's a little bit down due to a prolonged cold streak. He hasn't presented a ton of upside in his past 5 or so games, but a breakout is right around the corner. He's still hitting the ball, just not a whole lot of power. And he might not have a ton of power here at Pittsburgh, but righty-lefty matchup against Jeff Locke really profiles well for the price point. So I think you can feel reasonably confident in him tonight. Otherwise, dipping down a little bit further, Miguel Sano, not to sound like a homer, but Hutchison has been bad against righties this year, 387 WOBA, as I mentioned before. Sano has the power to cash in on a hitter-friendly environment there in Toronto, so I don't really mind him batting cleanup for the Twins.
Yeah, and Sano's been a lot better against righties than lefties since he's come up as well, striking out a ton against lefties, so you got to like that reverse split for him there. Shortstop options, if you're paying up, for me, it's going to be Carlos Correa, $4,500 against Nick Martinez. Yep. You already mentioned his struggles against righties. Of course, you can play Tulo as well, but for me, I'm going Correa if I'm paying up. Johnny Peralta, though, if you're talking your chalk cash game play, he's against the lefty, nice hitter's park. I mean, it's just got to be Johnny Peralta in your cash games tonight, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's an easy pick for cash games is just get Johnny Peralta in there for 3K. Hitter-friendly park in Great American there, Cincinnati, against a, subpar lefty, as I'd like to say, in David Holmberg. That's a very easy pick, and I think it's him head and shoulders above all the other options that aren't priced almost out of consideration, like Correa and Tulo are tonight. Obviously, get those guys if you can, but I think that's tough to blend them in. Getting all the other guys you want. Otherwise, if you need a punt play at shortstop and you love the rest of your team, I think Alcides Escobar is someone to consider, kind of along the same wavelength as his teammate Sal Perez, who they've both been struggling lately, which brought their price down to minimum. But just a really good matchup against Matt Boyd, who hasn't really shown anything at the major league level. Righty-lefty matchup, and I think Kansas City is poised to put up some runs tonight. So both of those guys could benefit from that high run-scoring environment.
Yeah, and I mean, Boyd gave up 7 earned runs without getting an out in his last major league start. So
that was amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
I think I could go out there and throw like 50-mile-an-hour fastballs and maybe get one ground out or a fly ball or something.
Yeah, somebody gets under
Just
one, pops out to the left
out.
fielder, something.
Yeah,
I tend to think I could too. At least Lance McCullers got one out. I mean, his was at least
did
a
he
strikeout.
get one out? I might have to go check the record because I don't remember that one out.
No, it was one strikeout, I swear.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, as we move to the outfield, I think you and I both agree that if you're going to pay up, Andrew McCutcheon's the guy that you want at $4,400. Bryce Harper is a really interesting play. Hasn't been Bryce Harper good recently, but Ruby De La Rosa actually very good against righties, not good against lefties. So Bryce Harper really the guy that you're looking at if you're targeting anyone from that Washington side. Outside of that, paying down a little bit. Brett Gardner and Jacoby Ellsbury are just there staring you right in the face. I mean, you got to decide which Yankees you want tonight because it'd be easy to just try to play all of them. But both those guys way underpriced, so I really don't mind playing both of them. But if you take one or the other, it's too close to call. I guess I would take Gardner just because he'll probably be batting second, maybe more RBI opportunities. But I don't think you can go wrong with either guy.
Yeah, I'm almost leaning towards Ellsbury, but I mean, I'm with you. I think that's just as close as you can get it. Flip a coin.
Yep.
If you have to choose. The only problem, let's take a step back here, and I just want to say the only problem is if you're going with Severino, you can only get 3 Yankee batters, and that kind of sucks because,
That's a good point.
I mean, you would like to get maximum exposure if you can make it work, but so yeah, that's just something to consider. Obviously, you can kind of work around that, maybe go down to Adrian Gonzalez at first base and, fade Teixeira in that manner. But if you're looking down from there, you could go with a guy like Colby Rasmus, 2.7K. I think he's a decent tournament option. You really have to like Houston in Texas tonight, as we said before, against Nick Martinez. Otherwise, his teammate at a similar level as Brett Gardner is Carlos Gomez against Nick Martinez, worse against righties, as we said. I think that's a way to kind of diversify against Gardner and Ellsbury if you can in that spot and still feel good about with what you have. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Who else are you looking at outfield?
Well, I mean, to give you the other Yankee, there's Carlos Beltran, of course. You mentioned Rasmus. If Preston Tucker is in, he got hit by a pitch yesterday, left the game. You got to like him at 3,300. We mentioned their high total, but obviously keep your eye out for that one because there's not a guarantee that he's going to be playing. I kind of like a guy like Dexter Fowler, switch hitter against Jeff Locke, the lefty. Fowler hasn't been great recently over his past few games, but before that, he was on a really nice stretch of consistency. He was walking, he was hitting doubles, he had a couple home runs through that stretch. So I think for $2,800, he's one of my favorite sub 3K guys tonight. I think I'll be if I'm paying down a little bit, I think he's the guy that I'll have in a lot of my lineups.
Yeah, and then another guy I like, looking at the cheaper side of things, Stephen Piscotty of the Cardinals has that righty-lefty matchup against Holmberg in Great American Ballpark. He's not a guy with a ton of upside, but some reasonable potential in this matchup, and he's been batting second against lefties, so if that's the case again tonight, I think you can give him a look. Otherwise, another guy who has been upgraded to the top of the order is Gregor Blanco of the Giants against Perez. That's a pretty decent matchup there. We have Perez with a 346 WOBA against lefties, and Blanco's been batting first or second in place of Angel Pagan. So if he's at the top of the order, then there again, someone to consider. He scored 4 runs last night, 2 hits, a double, 2 walks, 4 runs. So he's a guy who just gets on base, and this Giants offense is very good at making contact, getting hits, and he can score runs like that. So you have to like him there, and I think if you're going cheap, he's a great, solid cash game option.
Yeah, I like that as well. And I'll throw out one more cheap guy for tournaments, Johnny Gomes. It's a matchup against Madison Bumgarner, but he's a lefty specialist. So if you want a low-owned type of guy with some upside, then Johnny Gomes at min salary is not a bad way to go. But certainly not a cash game play. Definitely a GPP guy.
Yeah, emphasize that one more time because
Do not play Johnny Gomes in cash.
Really true that he's a tournament option. Does he have BVP today?
I'm not sure.
I think I saw that he has some outstanding numbers against Madison Bumgarner because that was just like something weird. But
actually, yeah, I do see that 7 for 10 with 2 home runs.
Yeah.
So there you go. He's not only your cheap guy, but he's also BVP special. So I didn't even realize that. Even better. GPP.
Okay, he's cash game lock now, right? Let's upgrade him to that.
No.
Okay. All right. Just
Johnny
checking.
Gomes never in his career was a cash game lock. But either way, get some tournament exposure to that 700 batting average there. All right, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.